So, Doc, I'm guessing you've covered your fair share of reports regarding signs of life?
To say that this geode is really a sign of life is a little much.
Actually, this is only my second time investigating one of these reports.
Hand over the geode, Doctor.
Who are you?
Just give it to me, and no one gets hurt.
What the hell?
Jesse seems pretty hopeful about the find being a sign. Jesse's inexperienced.
What is this place?
Jesse! Hang on, I'm almost there.
Give it up, Doctor.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another session for IndieX 2024. Today, we are going to be playing a little bit a demo of Project Vesperi. It's a quite interesting, I would say, similarly to Until Dawn, maybe like a narrative game, very visually stunning. And today we have the pleasure of actually having the devs with us here. So we have Trevor and Brandon, and they will be actually joining us, and we will be talking a little bit about the development process. How was it developing as a student project? Because initially it was a student project, among other interesting questions. So, Brandon, Trevor, how are you guys doing today?
Doing well. Thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, doing all right. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. It's great to have you here. I really thank you because I know it's super, super early in the USA where you come from. So thank you once again for your effort. It really means a lot to actually be able to sit down with you guys and ask questions. And probably the first question I would ask is maybe we can start with Trevor and then Brandon. I would like you to kind of talk a little bit about yourselves, maybe the team, what are your roles on the project, and then give us just a small, very small pitch on what actually is Project Vesperi before we dive into the gameplay.
Yeah. I'm Trevor. I'm the writer and producer on Project Vesperi, and this has sort of been a really awesome journey to be on. It basically started as a sort of thesis project for our time at school and university, and it sort of has grown from there into being our passion project. And we've been working with a lot of folks that have been able to really bring this thing alive, and it's been a good journey so far.
Yeah. And I'm Brandon, so I'm the creative director and sort of the cinematic designer on the project. So sort of a lot of the storytelling in terms of the visual design and stuff like that. And it was just so much fun. I come from a background in filmmaking. I've always loved games, so doing this project and bringing everybody together to try to pull something crazy like this off has been a dream of mine. And I can't thank each and every dev and actor and everyone we've collaborated with along the way, or composer with the music. Like everyone, it's just been an absolute joy. So excited to show you all about it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
In your words, how would you describe Project Vesperi?
Yeah, Trevor.
Oh yeah. Um, I would say that it's sort of it's sort of an interactive branching narrative. It's it's sort of a game that sort of blends a lot of the things that I've loved in games, which is, you know, heavy emphasis on story and something meaningful that you have player agency in. I think is sort of a um, it's sort of the things that I've really enjoyed. It's something, a lot of the things that Brandon and some of the other team members have really loved in games. So yeah.
Yeah. The
Awesome.
pitch is sort of every character can live or die depending on your choices, and it's up to you to see about this sort of sign of life on Venus and how you would go about approaching it yourself. So definitely
Great,
choices
great.
matter type. Yeah.
Awesome. Before we do jump into the game, I just want to say to everyone at home, we are monitoring the live chat. So please, if you have any questions you want to ask Trevor or Brandon, do leave them there, and we'll be try to get to them, of course, as we go throughout the stream. But I think after that introduction, we should actually jump into the game and see for ourselves what Project Vesperi is, how it plays, what it looks like. So with further ado, let's go. I think maybe my first question would be for you guys, how did the project actually came to be? Because of course it was built in the context of we have to do this thesis, this kind of project for school. But how did you at that time decide you wanted to do something more on this narrative side and sci-fi futuristic world that we are going to see in a bit, as we see here, Venus 2083? What led you to build this kind of project?
Yeah, I would say it started with a sort of kernel of an idea, and I approached Trevor, who I knew was a good screenwriter, a good storyteller that I wanted to work with, who was in games and who was all passionate about narrative design. Um, and it became a matter of I made a concept short film that sort of was like a teaser of what it would be like, because otherwise people would never believe me. So then that was step one. Step two is actually doing the motion capture, which then we knew before we needed to step on the first day of class, we needed to be like, hey, don't worry, all the animation's done. Like that, that's not even something we're worried about. Now it's just like building the actual narrative gameplay and the programming, and obviously there's a lot more that goes into it, especially when you're trying to launch something that's a polished product. And it's been an amazing journey learning every step of the way building this in Unreal. So yeah, I think that's part of where it started. So we had 6 days of motion capture from an 83-page script with multiple actors and 6 days of shooting. So it was a lot of fun, and that sort of was the ground point that we knew people had to look at us and be like, okay, you actually can do this. Like, this is not some pipe dream. Like, this is something that's within reach.
Yeah, I think.
Maybe.
Oh yeah,
Go
go
ahead.
for it. Oh, I was just going to add. I think the whole thing for us was really making sure that we were like fitting into the scope idea of what we were trying to do, and sort of being able to, get everybody on board, and be able to say like, oh yeah, we've got an idea for how we're going to make this work. So that it started with that big pitch to our professor and the whole class, and sort of it grew from there. So yeah.
Awesome. Then I guess my next condition I would be very curious about is, were these resources, these for example the actors and the mocap, let's say, conditions, was it a part of your studies, your university? How did you actually access this? Did you have connections previously? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it was a mix. We basically ran it like it was an independent film project, in terms of the connections and the casting and all that side of things. But the actual mocap suit was from our school, but from a different branch of our school, and we managed to convince them to let us have it for the entire summer. And so we had one mocap suit for up to 4 actors in a scene, and so we'd have to do it like a stage play and make sure that everybody could sync up and pretend that they're like happening at the same time, but it was actually shot like even days apart sometimes for the same scene.
Okay, good, very interesting. Yeah, it's not that common, I guess, that people have such nice conditions, but I'm assuming then that you actually did the work to prove that you would actually use it, right? Because you did all this kind of script writing and storyboarding before, so that when you went into this experience, you were like, okay, we have the time, we have the people, we have the resources. Yeah, we need now to actually execute.
Right.
So,
And then step one was also learning how do we even do motion capture. That was a whole thing in and of
Yeah.
itself. But we learned our way through it, which I think is the beauty of making games and just the indie mindset, just doing it yourself. And yeah, we definitely had to had to bring everybody together to make it happen. So It's all fun.
Yeah, this project has been a lot of firsts, and I think that it started in college, so there's a lot of learning process involved in just sort of like the technology aspect of it as far as mocap and that sort of thing. But then also just I think game development is a constantly changing process where you're iterating and sort of improving on what you're building. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun to go through.
Okay, awesome. Do you think you would be able to pinpoint for me kind of the moment where you actually decided, hey guys, we have here actually something that we can polish and turn into an actual product and not just student project? Because I would assume that's a very hard decision to make. Maybe no one in the team is interested sometimes, or you don't believe in the project. But it seems like in your case, you actually drove forward this decision. So I would be interested in finding out when and how did you make this decision actually.
Yeah, I think it was in large part when we went to GDC and we got to sort of pitch it around and see like, hey, is this actually something viable? Is this something that people are interested in? And when we continued to get sort of from the games industry and also just players that we would show the game at early stages, they were very excited by it, and we were sort of excited to do a branching narrative game. I think that was always been our kind of, we grew up playing Telltale games and like you mentioned, Until Dawn and all those things. And it's like, what if we could put our own twist on that, make something that proves that at an indie level, these types of games are possible. So that's, I think, when we decided to go for it and chase it and put it up on Steam and the whole 9 yards.
Okay, good. Yeah, because you mentioned you have this cinematic background, and this really helps with all the visuals, let's say, with a part of like adding the bouquet effects, knowing how to stage scenes. And so I think you do have this kind of experience that sometimes is missing in the dev teams, which usually student dev teams are much more focused on, yeah, okay, we learned the programming, we have the game design, we know how to program, let's go for it. We grab a couple artists and we can do it. But sometimes they miss this kind of narrative design and this cinematographic design, which you have. And so I think it was actually a good decision to make because there's not so many people in the indie space producing this kind of content at this visual polish level, as people can see at home. It's very, very, very polished. I would say maybe, but that's not indie anymore. Like back when they did Senua, the first game, that was kind of the most we've saw. But then they were quickly picked up by Microsoft and elevated, and with a much larger budget. So I think there is here something you actually can reach an audience with a game that is in a maybe a smaller scale and an indie level, but still gives people the polish they need.
Totally. And no, it's been an absolute treat getting to see everyone playing the demo and enjoying it, and a lot of feedback, and people believe in this thing and they want to improve upon it and suggestions and whatever. And like, I think that's the beauty of it, was we're learning and we're very proud of what we've made, but we're excited to polish it even further for launch. So we're really excited about that.
Absolutely. And since you were talking so much, I think the viewers might have not been paying attention so much to the game, but basically we were doing some surveying on Venus and we found something that pulsates. We don't know what it is, but there might be some inkling of, let's say, foreign life or extraterrestrial life here.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Seems like we had some issues with the game. Just hold on a bit, guys. Let's see if we can pull it up again. Okay, but as we were talking, we talked a little bit about the student team and that now you guys are mostly 4 to 6 and working more with people in their free time. So this is still a free time project, which is a lot based on the people giving their time to the project themselves. Personally, how were you able to convince the people that they should invest in this project, that they should give their own free time to developing something? Because I think that's a very tough position to be in and a very hard thing to do, and you seem to have pulled it off actually.
Yeah. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that when we started this project, we sort of were really open to seeing where it went. Initially it was going to be at the very least it was going to be at least a proof of concept that folks can use as sort of a portfolio piece for their work, and a large part of I think sort of Brandon and I were very passionate about the sort of the project as a whole, and sort of when we were pitching it to people as far as, oh, this is sort of what we're thinking of trying to build. Is this something that you'd be, interested in, jumping on board? Would you be interested in doing some gameplay programming? Would you be interested in doing, tools? That sort of thing was like we really wanted to find people that were interested in and excited to see the vision of it being not only just maybe a portfolio piece, but if we were able to really cohesively work together, maybe it could be something more. And it's and that was sort of when we decided to sort of look at going the indie route and really sort of polishing this up and being able to release this. So from the beginning, it was finding folks that were excited and just as passionate, honestly, as each of us, as Brandon and I, and that were excited for at the very least portfolio piece, and maybe something more as an indie release. And yeah, I think it came uh, from finding that same passion that Brandon and I both had for the project.
Yeah, and a lot of the same devs. Just we've sort of been building it since day one together. So it's just kind of been, yeah, labor of love, and everyone's really proud of what they've created here.
I think so. I think you should be proud, because it's not so common that students can actually review something that appears so polished. And I actually wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. So as students, you said you had to learn so much. Um, would there be any like specific challenges that you would like to talk about, specific lessons that you learned during this development, that really helped you grow as a developer and bring the game forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned, but um, I think the bottom line is just the best idea is the most important thing. So always be looking for your collaborators, no matter what department they're in or what their exact task is. Oh no. um,
Yeah,
and
seems like we are having some
I know
issues.
I feel bad. We've
Yeah.
had the game running on Steam Deck apparently, so I have no idea what is
Yeah,
going
Yeah,
on.
I've already lowered, don't worry. I've already
no,
lowered the settings a little bit. I can try again to lower them a little bit more. Um, but yeah, continuing with the lessons, or your favorite moments, or the lessons you learned from the development that you would like to share.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of like taking like uh, every perspective when it comes to what could improve the game and what could improve sort of the foundations of what we already have without like increasing the scope. There's a way to just polish and refine and within the confines of what you're already making, make a better product. So for us, that was really we've it's stuck pretty closely to our initial kind of pitch that Trevor and I had, but the developers and the actors and everyone involved has just brought so many great ideas and golden nuggets that we cherish. So that was definitely a big, exciting kind of anytime I see something that like our programmer like came up with the whole idea for like part of level design, and that was just an awesome part where it was just like very cool to see when everyone's little ideas come together in such a big way. It's great.
Absolutely.
yeah, I think a large part of the sort of collaborative nature of this whole project has been sort of the give and take of like being able to like sort of take ownership of certain aspects of the game. I think a lot can be done, sort of musically in all the different scenes, and there's so many little things that we were able to include in the environment, and sort of expand on just sort of in the world building of a couple of the interactables that you can experience as you sort of navigate not the containment lab, but sort of the overall station as you're getting in there and trying to figure out, oh, sort of what's going on here in the space. So I think a large part of it has been sort of that give and take of ideas and different things going on and being able to bring sort of your own thoughts to the project and yeah.
Great. Talking about the setting, actually, would you like to expand a little bit on the setting? I mean, we've seen that it's this not so far actually future. We do have space exploration. We do have this kind of different factions, as in the United Nations of Earth and maybe some United Colonies of America. There may be some push and pull here. Maybe there are any mysterious aspects from this setting that you actually want to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been ever since I read the story All Summer in a Day. I read Ray Bradbury. The story takes place on Venus. Is one of my favorites. As like a kid growing up as a young reader, and uh, you know, I've always been fascinated by Venus and how much of a hellish planet it is, and all of these things. So the idea of like, okay, what if we could sort of have a station that sort of this failed terraforming experiment from the Unified Nations of Earth left this sort of area of reduced pressure and heat where these astronauts are able to find this sort of sign of life, and to have a sign of life crop up on the unlikeliest of candidates out of our solar system was something that was really interesting to us, because we've seen Mars a lot, but something that was exciting to us was what if we could see sort of the acidic kind of yellowish haze of Venus, and have a story that takes place there. um, yeah, Trevor, I don't know. I don't know, but
Yeah. Yeah, I think a large, as we were sort of creating the world and sort of bouncing ideas back, I think what we landed on as far as sort of the factions, the Unified Nations of Earth and United Colonies of America. I think there's so much. Um, I think there's a lot of division and unification all at once in this setting here. So, on the one hand, a lot of countries have come together and are sort of wanting to sort of explore what is out there in the stars and sort of recognize that, hey, maybe we have been using a lot of our resources here on Earth, and it should be something that we are actually actively looking towards now. Whereas, at some point, with the United Colonies of America, it's one of those sort of perspectives that they take is, we should use what we have. We should, sort of be, trying to use and, to the best of our ability, everything that's here on Earth, and, not sort of worry too much about the exterior or overall external of Earth as much as can be. So I think it was sort of an interesting place to find sort of to find that push and pull between whether full utilization of resources or start be looking at things and actually exploring. I think a large part of that was something that we were looking at and trying to bring to our world. So.
yeah, this Mhm.
No
And
worries.
yeah, and that's another thing is that the opening the full opening scene is not included in the demo version of the project, which kind of gives a bit more context to that. So we know some people have been like confused about like how are they walking on Venus? And it's like don't worry, like we got you. Like we didn't realize that people would be as into that as we are, so we're excited to kind of elaborate on further launch. But yeah, no worries. It's a work in progress for a reason. So
Yeah, I think it's funny when we come. Oh, yeah, no worries. Yeah, I think it's funny whenever there's sort of you're bringing your project out there and trying to see what works and see sort of what folks' reactions are. So it was funny to see that folks were a little more concerned about the Venus aspect of it.
Okay, good, good. Um, Actually, you talked a little bit about the music. Neither of you are involved with the music, right? You have someone else on. Do you have like a process of collaboration with this person that's very hands-on? Did you know already a little bit about how to curate music for a project like this, or was that also like a super big learning that you had to do? Because as a narrative experience, then like the soundscape is extremely important. So I would also be interested in understanding actually how did you come up with this?
yeah, we actually had our composer reach out to us after seeing that little original concept teaser that I had mentioned earlier, and that was sort of incredible. His name's Lu Chen, and he's worked on The Flash, Arrow, like the sort of CW shows. So he was working at Warner Brothers TV doing composing for a long time there. Um, and so when he reached out, we were obviously honored and very excited the opportunity to work with him. And he's just been an absolute joy. He's a gem of a human being beyond his talent, and it's just been so fun to see it come together. We were really inspired by sort of leitmotifs and like sort of having a theme per character or per symbol in the story, and a traditional kind of Star Wars way, but more contemporary. And we wanted to take it from there, and he did an amazing job. We don't take credit for any of it. We just enjoyed that he was able to pull it off. So very fun.
Yeah, Lou's incredible. He's been fantastic and to work with, and I really do think that sort of from every aspect of this game, I feel like the music is really able to tie it all together. It's been phenomenal to work with him, and I think his work is really brought a lot of value to the overall game and the experience.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, we haven't talked too much about it, but the game actually is a branching narrative. So we do have different branches that you can go on, different outcomes you can have. Of course, we talked about the characters that they can live or they can die based on your actions. How, when you're designing kind of this branching narrative, you're kind of limited in the time you have and the money, the content that you can put in the game. How do you actually decide how many branches we have and where do we want the story to go? Is it kind of like this is the most interesting aspect we absolutely want to explore? Or are you more of like a go by the pants guy where you have this nice idea and then you're like, okay, I think this will really fit. Let's put it in. Let's try to fit it in. How is this process? How has it been for you?
Yeah, the branching narrative process, you mentioned one of the, sort of like challenges that we had during the process of the game, and I think branching narrative was sort of that first hurdle that we sort of overcame. Brandon and I were working on sort of figuring out the story that we wanted to tell, and then also figuring out, what are the changes that are reasonable within our scope. Sort of how you mentioned, we do have limited time, we do have limited budget, resources, all that kind of stuff. So it was really leaning into, okay, so what works narratively? One of the things that I'm really passionate about is sort of story structure and being able to figure out, what makes an actually, a good story. How do we bring um, uh, a narrative experience that's not only exciting but meaningful to the players and is something that feels like regardless of the choices that you're making, you're not able to like game the you're not able to game the game into having a one note story. We wanted to make sure that there were some ups and downs with the overall narrative, and a large part of that was sort of designing the different sort of narrative beats so that you still would have that sort of narrative flow, even regardless of what choices you make. And a large part of that was structuring it so that uh, and it sort of comes into play with a little bit of how we put a unique spin on sort of the uh, branching aspect of things, and sort of as you play through the game, you'll notice that maybe it's a bit of a Groundhog Day experience. So there's some changes that you might be able to make to some of your decisions. So a large part of that was being able to decide, okay, so where are we putting these, sort of main shifts in how the game is experienced, and where the narrative breaks off, and being able to bring that to players with, in an enjoyable experience. So.
Brandon, do you want to add anything to that, or do you think that
Yeah.
was
No, exactly. I think, yeah, that's exactly right. Is basically we wanted to make sure that no matter what branch the player went down, they still had a good story, and that nobody was cheated out of having a good experience, and that all those stories are different. And ultimately, that's the exciting part about it, is like, depending on which branch you go down or which outcome you end up resulting in, it's uniquely yours, but it doesn't, fall flat in a way where it kind of feels like you didn't get the full experience, right? So that was a tricky challenge, but to Trevor's point, because there's sort of a time looping element to it, the demo is everything up until that time loop begins, and so the game really opens up from there, in the full game, and it's really fun to kind of be able to see what it's like when you can approach the same situations but with new context, and you know what's about to happen, but maybe you can stop it. And if you did this differently, would this have happened? And you get to kind of gamify that, and sort of in a way we're gamifying like 3 act structure, and also like game mechanics with, sort of introduce practice master. So you're introduced the first chapter, the
nice?
second chapter you're practicing trying to figure it out, and then you better master it, or someone's going to die that you don't want to die. So
Absolutely.
kind of pulling from all our references and inspirations in that way was a lot of fun, for sure.
Okay, then shifting a bit now into this, since we talked a bit about the mechanics. The game features QTEs. That's the mechanic I've interacted with. So you have the choices you can make, and you have the QTEs that you need to react on. Are these the main two mechanics, or did you go a little bit deeper with something else, maybe some kind of mini game or some other aspect that you want to highlight um, in this game?
Yeah, pretty much those are the key mechanics, as well as exploring the worlds can also unearth new narrative moments. So if you find something in the station, like a clue or some sort of an object that you might be able to take with you on your person, there's a few different ways that you can impact the story and unlock choices that were previously locked to you. So they'll kind of feed in together, and a lot of that came also down to, like you said, like sort of looking at our inspirations like Until Dawn and Telltale Games and whatever, and like we know QTEs aren't the most desirable mechanic in the world, but it was what was possible with what we had, and we felt like it was a way to engage the player and keep them on the edge of their seat, in a way where they can still feel like they have agency, and we actually made them quite impactful later in the game. So if you don't get used to them early on, you might run into some trouble, and there you can get an entirely new ending based on a failed quick time event, which was something that we definitely wanted to go kind of lean into with that. So a lot of fun there.
Okay. Yeah, good. So that's also little bit of the practice master that you do, because I'm guessing the first QTs are kind of like, yeah, whatever, a little bit here, a little bit there, these changes. But as you get used to it, then you really need to hit them as they escalate, let's say, in tension.
Yeah. Uh, Another thing I wanted to add there is with, sort of Brandon was saying, we were trying to figure out ways to gamify narrative. I think a big aspect to this game specifically is that your own curiosity and your own leaning into the narrative is sort of what will uh, make the game more. It will basically unlock the game's ability to provide you with more routes for agency and more ability to branch. So the more that you're leaning into the story and trying to investigate, okay, so what's really happening here, trying to, talk with the different researchers, Jesse and Helen, and, sort of figure out, okay, so what are their thoughts on this sort of sign of life? Where are they going with this? And, sort of being able to explore around the station, and it's the player's own curiosity and, sort of questioning into the narrative aspects of the game is what, will really be more rewarding for players. So, that sort of came from, both of our backgrounds in wanting to, in playing narrative games, the, sort of telltale aspect and really being able to dive into the game's world. And it was always a question of, well, there were all these really unique items or little stories that we found in these worlds, but they didn't always come back to a narrative moment that we had control of later on. So that was something that we wanted to sort of bring in here and sort of empower players' curiosity of the overall story.
Okay, awesome. That's great to hear, actually. So then you actually have, of course, the QTEs, the narrative choices, but you also have the exploration and the natural curiosity of the player to kind of bring themselves deeper into the world and deeper into the narrative. That's really great. I have actually a question. I'm going to try and formulate it well because I'm not a narrative guy, so I'm not theoretically knowledgeable about narrative building, but we've been talking a lot about plot. Plot structure, well, the overall arc of the story and moments, but I guess we should also talk a bit about characters. So my question is this more of the characters are in a certain situation, there's a plot occurring, and this plot kind of has a message and wants to try and serve some themes, or is there also like a character-led plot, and the plot is informed in, for example, the characters' traumas and their dramas and their relationships between each other? How do you balance this kind of character-driven and plot-driven in the game?
Yeah, I mean, if we're doing our jobs right, they should be sort of one and the same, where the characters are the people that are driving the plot forward, and in this case, it's the player that's driving the plot forward. So, you play as Doctor Evelyn Roth, who is an astrobiologist who's sent to study the sign of life on Venus. She's dispatched from the Unified Nations of Earth, and previously there was Jesse Hartwell, who you play as in the prologue, who discovered it, who's kind of a rookie. He's very new. It's his first time on the surface of Venus, so he's really nervous about it. And as well as Helen, who you control, Helen Ward, when she's driving the rover, and she's more of the grizzled. She's been on Venus for over a year with the previous researcher who was stationed with her. And then as we get into it, there's the intruder who enters the station and sort of has a revolver on his hip, demanding that the doctor hand over the sign of life. So this sort of interplay between these four different perspectives, and that each person, Jesse's very adamant that it must be a sign of life. Helen's very skeptical and had an experience back on Mars where there was a sign of life that was a big boy, the boy cried wolf, right? So they thought that there was a sign of life on Mars, and it was totally false, and it kind of ruined her career in many ways. So there's a lot of interplay with that, especially as there's also a disparity between researchers who have to be sort of stationed on Venus, which is kind of the worst place to get stationed, and the doctors who are able to get escorted and immediately fly out to these places and be dispatched because they're higher priority and more accolades and whatnot. So it's kind of when you put these four people in the same room and you let the player decide who they want to side with, or if they don't even want to side with anyone. That's kind of the exciting part, is that we allow them to sort of develop relationships with Jesse or Helen, or both, or neither. And it's the exciting part of how do they all come to deal with when there's someone who's threatening their lives at gunpoint. So kind of interesting as you also uncover the layers of each person sort of has some family sort of drama and relationships and things that you sort of uncover throughout the game, and it's very fun as we sort of peel back the layers that you can hopefully empathize with them and care about what happens next.
Yeah, a large part of the a large part of the narrative is sort of understanding these characters' motivations and being able to sort of react appropriately to each of them, and sort of your choices will sort of change their actions as they, sort of are going into, sort of that engaging moment there in the containment lab. And yeah, I think a large part is being able to interact with these characters, be able to understand their motivations, and then also understanding where and why they're coming from the perspectives that they are. Brandon mentioned you know Jesse and Helen are sort of at opposite ends there, as far as sort of their experience levels. And yeah, a large part of that for the player to sort of dive into is being able to uh, really sort of determine, okay, who's more, who's more aligned with what's actually happening here,
Mm.
and being able to make decisions based on that. So
Very interesting. So then I guess the player bias will definitely come into play there. Maybe someone younger will, an optimistic, will have Jesse more in line, who says,
Mhm.
"What, it can be life. It can. We should look at it." And then someone
yeah,
else that's more like, "Yeah, we've seen this before. Who knows what it is, right?"
Exactly.
So that's really interesting. I see
yeah,
now
it
after
gives.
talking. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Oh, I was just going to say it gives players the ability to have more of it gives players to give it gives players the ability to sort of impart their own perspective and thoughts onto our main character Evelyn, rather than sort of having that character be defined. It's more so defined on sort of the way that you're thinking, the way that you're sort of making choices, and that sort of evolves over the course of the game.
Yeah, it's nice to have this kind of mirror of possibilities that you can tap to and actually, yeah, use it to create this compelling world. Um, Now that we've actually been talking for already a while, I think I kind of see the picture a little bit better in the game itself. But we've talked about a lot of like themes. So we have the theme of like what would the world actually look like in the future, in the sense of like what is the future going to look like technologically. You also have the plot of like what is it going to look like politically, because we already seen that we have different people from different factions, maybe with different interests coming into this. um you also have the character themes of like the past, the traumas, the relationships they had, the family. So kind of like this, we are far away from the family, we have to support them. What do we value more? You even have a little bit of this kind of like, should we actually be like optimistic and just hope for the best and like believe in stuff, or should we be led by cold analytical scientific rigor, right? And we need to investigate everything to the last before we sound the alarm. So there's all these different threads, all these different themes. And I guess one, probably my last question, but I still have some time, would be for each of you, which do you think is actually plays a bigger role in the game, and the one that you personally identify more with and want to express more in the game?
Yeah, I think for me personally, the one that always resonates with me is sort of um, leaving behind the people you love to do what you love is a very sort of double-edged sword, right? Because the nature of being an astronaut. It's like the most extreme example of like you're going to leave behind Earth, and there's going to be people that you won't see for months, if not years. And it's one of the most incredible things that somebody can do, and it's very brave, and you have to be so qualified to do that. But it's at the cost of sort of you having a normal life, right? So for me anyway, at least doing sort of this project and in many ways like other, sort of creative endeavors, it's like sometimes it's like that. It's like you have to be working all the time to be able to pull something off. And it's like, that comes at the expense of spending time with those that you love. So it's a matter of like, that's what's really important at the end of the day. And if we can get one person to play this game and want to spend a bit more time with people that's close to them, or have a little bit of a empathy for that, or for the characters they're playing as, like, then that's great. Like, that's what I would hope people would walk away with.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I think that that's one of the I think that's probably sort of our main theme here is being able to recognize, sort of what you're, what you're leaving behind. Brandon said it best as far as being able to recognize that like every endeavor that you go off and pursue is one that there'll always be challenges, there'll always be sacrifices, push pull of things that sort of want to go out and pursue in life versus the things that are sort of maybe you have to leave behind in that. That's something that we sort of all experience as students as we're sort of pursuing something that we want to do, and it's very exciting, and it's also a little daunting, as far as being able to go out into an industry and put your best foot forward and sort of see where everything sort of shakes out. I would also say I think the theme that resonates to me the most is definitely sort of being able to recognize sort of the perspective of another person. I think a large part of this game is really being able to sort of be able to make decisions for not only yourself but maybe recognize that these decisions are impacting others. And I think a major part of it is being able to sort of see how specifically you might not only you might not have all the answers here as far as understanding everybody's motivations. And I think a large part that sort of like we've experienced in life is being able to sort of do perspective taking and be able to sort of understand that even though we might not have all the answers, understanding that certain actions do have motivations behind them, and being open to sort of those types of motivations, I think is a big part of one of the themes in Vesperi. So
Nice.
Right.
Yeah. I think I might be
Yeah.
projecting then a little bit of my own taste here, but sounds a little bit interstellar-y.
Yeah.
They do have this kind of relationships are what actually matters, right? And this kind of different perspectives that you have and how time just evaporates, right? And once you
hmm
look back, it's gone, right? So
Right.
I really like that.
Yeah, Interstellar and Arrival were two big inspirations for the storytelling and what we wanted to say, and I think that's part of the exciting part is that like the characters might seem, maybe shallow or one-dimensional at first, and then as we peel back the layers on each of the characters throughout the story, and you kind of are encountering the same situations, you come to understand why each choice is being made from them, and it kind of informs your own choices. So part of the exciting part of what we've made here. So yeah.
Nice. Then maybe I would have one last question because Trevor, you mentioned how daunting it is to actually take the step, right? From we are learners to we are doers, we are makers, we are creatives, right? We did talk a little bit about it behind scenes, but did you have or do you want to shout out someone or some program of mentors and people who supported you to actually reach where you are now?
Yeah. Yeah, I think a large part of the reason why we're here at all is because of our team. Our team has been bringing everything that they have to this project and really, sort of bringing that same amount of passion. So it's been really phenomenal to work alongside everybody and be able to see what they bring to this game every time we have our sort of development work sessions. It's something new. So really thankful to them, and also. I'd have to say, I think a large part of the reason why we were able to get our footing is because of our school, Chapman. We were able to sort of start this project there, and now we're able to move on and take this to the next level. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
It's
then
been
I
a joy.
guess
There's been
yes.
many mentors throughout the course of development. Yeah, like Tom Heaton, who's sort of the creative director of Until Dawn. We got to bump shoulders with at GDC, and that was a huge kind of inspiration point for him to take a look at the game and give his sort of advice and just from somebody who had made Until Dawn, and also all the supermassive titles as of late. It's pretty incredible, and it was very inspiring for us to say, yeah, you know what, we are gonna be doers. We're gonna make it. So yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone has this start, right? Everyone starts from something. So it's amazing that you are actually taking the first step and you have this kind of support. That's really great. We are actually getting close to our time. So what I would do now is I would open up the floor to you and ask you guys if there's any message you want to share, do any call outs, anything else that you would like to say now to the audience. Now is the time to do it. So feel free to go ahead.
Yeah, go check out the demo on Steam and play it yourself and enjoy. We are very excited that we have the game out there, and it's a continual process of wanting to improve the game. So any feedback, we welcome it, and we're excited to have more and more people play the game and see it for themselves. Yeah.
I can actually I will share it right now. I have the link. I can share it in the live stream so people can actually go and take a look at it. Can I do it? Yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Feel free to wishlist it if it seems like it's something you'd want to play.
Yes, absolutely. Wishlists help the devs a lot, so please go ahead and do it. Then, with anything else, I want to again apologize that we were not able to showcase the game fully, but we did have a little bit more time to talk with Brandon and Trevor, which is awesome. And please go check it out on Steam. It's an amazing project by a small team of people who apparently took the reins from students to actually trying to build a full product. And if you know how hard that is, then please support them and wishlist their game, because they do deserve it, and the game is very, very, very awesome. So once again, guys, Brandon, Trevor, thank you so much for being here with us so early. I think you have earned some, let's say, well-deserved rest, a little bit of a nap, maybe breakfast. So thank you once again for being here, guys, and see you hopefully in the future very soon.
Thank you so much, Nuno. Appreciate it.
Bye, guys.
So, Doc, I'm guessing you've covered your fair share of reports regarding signs of life?
To say that this geode is really a sign of life is a little much.
Actually, this is only my second time investigating one of these reports.